So now we're on the blog clone, move and create page, and this is where we can create blog templates, we can copy blogs, we can move blogs from one location to another. Kind of make things a lot simpler for us for moving stuff around and creating blogs. Now obviously it's very simple to create a blog using something like Fantastico or Simple Scripts, which normally comes free with your hosting, and you can build, as you're probably well aware, a blog in a matter of a minute or two, if not less. But these, of course, are just bare bones blogs. They have no content, they have no plugins, they have no themes, they have no configuration. That all has to be built on top. And what you can do with this is you can create a template, i.e. you can copy an existing blog and move it to another location, even to another domain, and all that will be done automatically for you. Or you can build a blog that you want to replicate out to a blog network, so it has basically the same configuration, i.e. all the plugins would be installed already and configured, the theme would be installed and configured, any other configurations would all be complete, and you'd be able to copy that as one piece and simply replicate that out time and time and time again. Now it does integrate with cPanel. You don't have to have cPanel to make this work, but if you have cPanel, it enables you to create databases easier. And I'll kind of cover that as we go along. So let's just look at it as a familiar kind of layout, although not quite the same, because we can't see any blog list on the side, and that's simply because in this particular case the blog list doesn't need to be shown at this stage. But if you just hang in there, you will see a blog list in a moment. Now, what we do have is a couple of libraries very similar to the plugin library and the theme library that we had on one of the previous pages, but in this case it's called a cPanel library and a ClonePack template library. The ClonePack template, as I said, is a copy of an existing blog. You can create a pack from it, or a clone or a template from that blog, and we can store those away so that we can use them again, and we store them in this library. So we've got one in here at the moment. You can have as many as you like, and we put that into the library simply from completing the blog pack name, any name you want for it, and then we add the install.php and the zip package. Again, we'll come back to that in just a moment, and you browse for those on your PC. Now, the cPanel details, which are also effectively FTP details in general, FTP and cPanel logins are usually the same credentials. So there's generally two kinds of FTP or cPanel access. One is kind of on a per blog basis, and any blog can have its own cPanel login, and that's absolutely fine. Even on shared hostings, each blog can have a separate cPanel hosting. Certainly if you have a reseller blog, then if you have a reseller hosting, then the blogs you create would normally be created on individual postings, and they would have individual FTP or cPanel access. So that's one kind. If you've got a shared hosting, you may just have one login for the whole shared hosting, and that same login, that same FTP or the same cPanel access would be identical, and all your sites would then be what they call add-on sites, and they will be added onto the bottom in a separate folder or a separate directory with your different domains and your different sites on. Now, whatever you have, whether you have shared hosting or whether you have reseller hosting or whatever kind of hosting you have, you will be familiar with your particular setup. But this system allows you to use both or any of those kind of setups equally as easily. So to add a new cPanel in, you simply add in the host name, the username, the password, and the theme. And if you're not familiar with themes, the theme by default is normally called X3, not to be confused with a WordPress theme, by the way. This is a cPanel theme. It is just the kind of the way it looks on the front end, and it can be swapped around. But the default theme is X3, the letter X followed by the number 3. So that's kind of the one to put in there in general. Some hostings like Bluehost and HostGator may have different theme names. In fact, Bluehost have a specific theme of their own called Bluehost. So with those completed, add that to the new cPanel and it will pop up here, and then of course once it's in our library it's easy to access, and we tend to access everything from our libraries. Similarly, the ClonePack templates, now we can clone off a blog, and I'll do that in just one moment. But before I go there, I just want to show you that this does integrate with cPanel, and in fact if you put in the various cPanel details, if you have multiple cPanels or multiple FTPs or multiple sites, you can add all these in here to access your cPanel if that's something you want to do. Saves you remembering all the passwords and all the logins. So once they're on here, you can simply the whatdoyouneed.com here is a shared hosting like I spoke about earlier, so I can simply open the cPanel just by using the just do it, and it will actually access the whatdoyouneed.com cPanel for me and open it up in this window. And there we go, you'll see the familiar kind of cPanel. If you've got Bluehost hosting yourself, you'll recognize this completely. As I said before, there's your site builder, simple scripts down there, and all the other actions or activities or functions that you have within your cPanel. Okay, so now that you've seen that, that's an easy thing. I'll just go back now and we'll do create a clone blog or template. So we can just do that, and now it will give us a list of blogs that we have registered. And as it says here, just select a source blog to create a clone pack from. So I'm going to go to this moth repellent one that we used earlier as an example, and now I'm going to create a clone pack from that, and it will simply take me to the cloning area on that particular blog. And in fact, as you can see, it already has a package up here now, but I'm going to delete that one just for the moment so as we can see the I want to delete that one, so I just want to create a fresh one so you can see exactly how this happens. And this is the view you would normally get if you haven't already created one, or say if you delete the existing ones. And you simply need to click this button up here where it says create package, and OK, and it will just take a minute or so to create your clone package or your template. And there it is, completed now. And what you see over here, you will see two buttons. One says installer and one says package, and if you hover over them they both say download. So that's simply what you need to do, is download these to your PC. So just click the installer and it will download as it will with depending on how your PC is set up. So I'm just going to save that file off, and so I'm just going to save this to a separate directory. Let me just go down to the C drive, and I'm going to create a new folder called moth. I'm going to save that in there just so it keeps it nice and convenient for me. And similarly, I'm going to download the package, and again we're going to save that to the same location, and that will just take a few seconds to download. Okay, with that done, we can go back to our control panel. Now I have a package in here already, but I'm going to try and pull this other one in, and as you see now we've got our blog list, and we're kind of finished with that now, so we don't really need it. So I can just go to clone or move a blog, which is what we're going to do in a moment. Click that, and that will just close down for me and bring my details back. So what I'm going to do now is grab those files, in other words the clone pack or the template that I created for the moth site, and I'm going to do that from this form up here. So we're going to call it a name. We're just going to call it I'm going to call it moth rep, and I'm going to grab the install PHP, so I need to browse for that. And again, we know where we saved it off, so I saved it off on my C drive in here under moth, and there's my install PHP. Make sure you grab the right file, so we want the PHP for the first one, and that will grab that, and then browse for the zip package, and there's the zip package there, as you can see. Open that one up, and we're kind of ready to go. So I'm going to click create blog pack, and that will now upload that to the server that we have our control blog on. As I said, that'll just take a few minutes, so I will pause the video while that uploads. Okay, we have our new clone pack called MothRep, and of course we could use any clone pack we liked. Now, the first thing we need to do before we replicate this onto another site, or before we build a blog with this site, we need to create a database. Now, if you have cPanel for your hosting, then this integrates with cPanel and makes it a lot easier. But if you haven't got cPanel, then you simply have to manually create your database using whatever control panel or whatever a function the control panel enables you to do that, your particular hosting. Let's say this has a cPanel hosting, so I'm going to go for the electricalorgans.info, and I'm simply going to select create a database. And that will run off, automatically open cPanel for me, and I'm not touching anything now. This will just run through, and there it is, it's starting to create a database, and then it will create a user, and then we'll add the user to the database for us, and there we are, and that's now complete. So once this now comes up and it says user, whatever it is, was added to the database, then we're kind of good to go. So with that done, it kind of knows what we're doing. We've created a database, so it obviously knows we're going to clone or move a blog, so it's set that for us. But we do need to decide which one we're going to clone, and we're going to clone off the MothRep, the one we created earlier. And also, what we need to do is to place or decide what directory we're going to actually write the blog into. Now, if it's going to be in the root directory, it will be the public_HTML, or it normally is by default. Now, you, as I said, will know your own hosting and could use cPanel or whatever control to check in your own hosting to make sure that's correct if you're not sure. But obviously, you need to know where you put in that. I say if it's in the root directory, it would generally be public_HTML. That may be a different name for some hostings, but that's kind of the mainstream one. And then we could put it into a place. I've got a /, and I'm going to call this tmblog66. Not a very exciting name, but that's what I'm going for. Okay, so we know we're going to put it into electronicorgans.info, which will be the public HTML, so that'll be electronicorgans.info /tmblog66 in this particular case, and it's going to be the moth repellent site that we saved off as a template earlier that we're going to install. Okay, that's all set, and we can simply just do it. Now what this will do now, it will add in our duplicator installer in here, and it will generally populate most of the fields for us. Now, one thing we do need to do is to make sure we get the correct install URL. So it knows what it's got, it's found the package, it knows where that's coming from, so we need to the install URL. Now we can click get, and most of the time that will give us exactly what we want, and we've got that there. It's now http electric organs /tmblog66, exactly where we wanted to put it. If you're on a shared hosting, that may be a slightly extended one, or rather than this name down here, it might be your shared hosting name down there, in which case you'll have to make sure you manually put in the correct URL in this format, like you can see it here, so of the actual site you're going to. So if they're add-on sites, they may not come up as by default, so you just need to actually type those in. Okay, site title is picked up by default. Now what you can do here, you can select the delete package after install, which is a good idea. That means that once it's installed, it will then delete the actual zip file that it's using to install it from. You don't want somebody to rewrite that one, or you don't accidentally rewrite that over your blog at a later date. So make sure you kind of delete that one. Now these settings are filled in at the moment. These are our database settings. Now I said if you're not integrated with cPanel, you will have to, at this point now, manually put in your database name, your username, and your password. Okay, with all that done, you are basically ready to go. Now it does have a test connection here, just to make sure if you've manually entered this information, it might be worth just checking that your database is actually okay by using the test connection. But so it should be okay if it's automatically placed in there. And then basically, yep, we've read all the warning notices, which basically tell you that you're about to clone a blog over something. So it kind of just gives you, make sure you're not overwriting something you want to keep, basically. So I'm doing this into an empty space, and I know I'm quite happy with that, so I'm fine and good to go. Okay, so we're now going to click install. Again, it gives you a final warning just to let you know and remind you that you're about to overwrite a database and overwrite a blog if it's got one. But I say we're confident we've got it right, so we're away. And as you can see, that's now complete. And a couple of steps just to do at the end. Basically, resave the permalinks. And that will take you to the login for the newly created blog. Now remember, the login will be the same as the source blog that you created this from. So I'm just going to put that in now and log in. And all we need to go is go to settings and permalinks. And really just resave. You don't need to save any, change any of the settings. Simply save the settings. The reason we do this is because it writes to the htaccess file in the root directory and configures things up for WordPress specifically. So we just kind of need to do that to make sure that's happening. And with that okay, we can go and have a look at the blog itself. And you can see that the full blog with the adverts all in here, videos still in, so everything's intact and completely moved now to electricorgans.info/tmblog66, away from where it was originally. Okay, that just completes the walkthrough. As I said, there are individual videos on each section and some additional information which you can check, but this should get you up and running.